All right, let's dive right in. We're on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the field of Dharma, and we're at one of the most pivotal moments in all of world literature. Seriously, the fate of an entire kingdom is hanging in the balance, and its greatest hero is about to face a crisis that will change everything.
Just look at that number. Nearly 4 million. That is the staggering number of warriors believed to have gathered for the Kurukshetra war in the epic Mahabharata. It's a number so big it's almost hard to wrap your head around, you know? It sets the stage for a conflict on a scale that's just unimaginable. But a force this massive isn't just a mob, so how on earth was it organized?
Well, the key to understanding that mind-boggling scale is a single word: Akshohini. This wasn't just a crowd of soldiers. Think of it as a highly structured, ancient, combined arms brigade. It had a very specific, very precise composition, and it was the basic building block for these absolutely colossal armies.
So check this out. Just one of these Akshuhini units had more than 200,000 warriors. And look at the breakdown. A perfect ratio of over 21,000 chariots, the exact same number of war elephants, then 3 times that many horses, and 5 times that in infantry. It's a logistical marvel, really, and an absolutely terrifying force to face. And remember, that was just one unit.
And this is where you see the true imbalance of power. The Pandavas, who are basically our heroes here, they commanded an army of 7 Akshahuinis. But their rivals, the Kauravas, they fielded a much larger force of 11. I mean, the odds were completely stacked against them. You'd think the Pandavas' greatest warrior would be totally laser-focused, right? Ready for the fight of his life.
But that's not what happens. Not even close. You see, the real battle, the one that's going to echo through thousands of years, isn't about to be fought with arrows and swords. It's about to take place inside the mind of one man. We're zooming in from the millions of soldiers to the hero himself, Arjuna.
And this brings us to the absolute core question, the very heart of the Bhagavad Gita. Why now? With everything on the line, why does Arjuna, this legendary warrior, this master archer, suddenly put down his famous bow and say, "I'm not fighting"? It's a moment of profound crisis that literally stops the war before it even begins.
So let's be clear. Arjuna's refusal isn't about cowardice. It's something way more complex. As this quote hints, his mind is just clouded, overwhelmed by grief. He's going through what's called a false renunciation, this sudden urge to abandon his duty that isn't coming from a place of wisdom, but from a deep, paralyzing sorrow.
And this internal struggle, it sets up a philosophical conflict that is absolutely timeless. It's a dilemma I think we all recognize in our own lives, that tension between what we feel personally and what we know we ought to do for the greater good.
So the conflict is between these two powerful ideas. On one side you have Mamakara, this intense personal attachment to his family, his people. The text describes it beautifully, like clouds that gather and then just disappear. But on the other side you have Dharma, his unwavering societal duty, the responsibility to fight for what's right, which is supposed to sustain the entire world.
So who exactly did he see across that battlefield? This wasn't an army of strangers or faceless enemies. He saw his own people, his revered teachers like Drona, his granduncle Bhishma, who practically raised him, and all his cousins, the Kauravas. The sheer weight of having to fight and kill the very people he loved and respected, it just paralyzed him. His Mamakara, his personal love, completely shut down his Dharma. It's in this moment of complete breakdown, of total paralysis, that Arjuna turns to his charioteer. And his charioteer is none other than Lord Krishna. And what happens next is one of the most profound conversations ever recorded, all about reality, duty, and the nature of the self.
Krishna's first lesson, well, it cuts right to the heart of Arjuna's fear. He says, look, the physical bodies you're so afraid to harm, they're just temporary shells. The true self, the Atman, that lives inside them, that's eternal. It can't be destroyed. And that insight is a total game changer. It shifts the focus away from the result of the action, death, and puts it squarely on the action itself, doing your duty.
So Krishna lays out this clear 3-step path through him. First, you have to see beyond the physical world, which is just temporary. Second, you have to detach from the fruits of your actions, and this is so important. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you aren't a slave to the outcome. And third, once you have that clarity, you act according to your swadharma, your unique personal duty in this world.
And then Krishna really drives the point home with this. He reminds Arjuna of his swadharma as a kshatriya, a warrior. And for a kshatriya, he says, there is no higher purpose, nothing better than
than fighting in a righteous war. To back down now, even for these very understandable personal reasons, would be to abandon his very nature.
Now, it's really easy to think of all of this as a purely philosophical story, something that takes place in some mythical land. But the Mahabharata is deeply, deeply rooted in a real physical place. It connects this ancient spiritual crisis to the actual ground beneath our feet.
You see, Kurukshetra is a real place. It's a district in the state of Haryana in India. And for thousands of years, long before and long after the time of the epic, this area has been seen as a holy place, a landscape with huge religious and historical importance.
And we're not just taking the text's word for it. We have physical evidence. This photo is from an archaeological dig in the Kurukshetra region. That's an ancient brick wall unearthed from a mound. It's actual, tangible proof that people have been living here for a very, very long time, anchoring this epic story in real human history.
And that's not a one-off find either. This piece of a sculpture is just one of many artifacts, like pillars, seals, and other statues, that confirm Kurukshetra has been a major center for culture and worship for centuries. The story is literally tied to a land with a deep, rich history.
Of course, all this brings up a really fascinating debate. Were there really almost 4 million soldiers there? Well, a lot of historians think the numbers are probably symbolic, a way to show just how monumental this event was. Others argue that the Kurukshetra of that time might have been a much larger area, and while archaeology proves the place is ancient, it hasn't found definitive proof of a single battle on that specific scale. So the truth is still kind of up for interpretation.
And that brings us right back from the historical to the personal. Arjuna's dilemma out there on the battlefield is completely timeless. It's a question that really all of us face in our own ways, big and small. When your personal feelings, your attachments, clash with what you know is your duty to the wider world,